kind of a street guy. Even though he went to church, he was a street guy. And you know us good girls want them bad boys. Whether them bad boys is in church or not, we are attracted to the bad boys. I don't know why we're so attracted to bad boys, but we are. And so I was attracted to me a bad boy. But the reality was, even though I was attracted to the bad boy, I didn't want the bad boy life. Welcome to another episode of Becoming with Angelina Watkins, where we are turning dreamers into believers and doers, where we are having open, candid, honest conversations about how we've overcome and how we reached a level of success to live life on our terms, where we are giving you a fresh perspective and the blueprint so that you can win at love, life, and money. I'm your host, Angelina Watkins, and I am your queen of becoming, and I am here to help you become who you're supposed to be so that you can do what you're supposed to do so you can have the life that you want to live. Now, today's episode is about it takes more than chemistry. We're going to get into what it takes to have a successful, healthy relationship, because it's going to take more than just chemistry to keep you all together. But before we get into that, I have my thought prompt for today. And then later on, we will go through our viewers question and our becoming a being tip. So today's thought prompt is taken from Love and Marriage Huntsville, which is a reality show on the OWN network. And they've started a new season, and the new season starts out with one of the married couples going out to dinner and having this conversation that I want you all to listen to before I give you my thoughts, and before I tell you what prompted my thoughts. So I'm going to play this, and I just want you to listen, and then we're going to get into this, okay? We're going to have a discussion about this. So here it is.
Well, I'm sure you're like in a good mood because your mindset is like good now because you had some time away to yourself.
Yeah, well, I think that this trip to Africa, first of all, thank you for understanding that I needed to go alone.
Because I wasn't on board at first.
I know.
Like, I just wasn't feeling it. I was like really upset. I was like, why do you have to go out of the country by yourself? Like, those was like red flags going up. Like, I've never been to Africa before, so it's like, why would we do that together as our first time?
I just want to dismiss, over there, my phone doesn't work really. We're on a different time zone. Mm-hmm. And it's just like, I wanted to break away from this.
I have a lot of responsibilities on me, so I'm like, I think it would have been a nice trip for us to do together, but you didn't even offer, for us to do it together. It was just like, it's something I want to do for me.
But you know what? I just needed to just get away. I've been feeling worn down, maybe depressed. You know what really depleted is the word. Work, COVID, and everything else going on in my life. So I really need to just take a step back, unplug, and reevaluate my life.
Okay, y'all. Now, that came on and I had to pause that, and I asked my husband, so what do you think about that conversation? Do you think he was wrong for going on a trip by himself and that he should have took his wife? And we had two totally different perspectives on this. And I want you to tell me, after I say what I have to say, I want you to go in those comments and I want you to let me know what you think. But my husband felt like he was wrong. He should have took his wife. I, on the other hand, felt like he was right and he didn't have to take his wife, which is kind of crazy that he didn't agree with the man, but I did. So my thing for this is, in my opinion, there are times that just because you're married doesn't mean that everywhere you go, your spouse has to go. That's just my opinion. I think there's times where you all have to be able to do some things on your own, even if that means to take a trip. This man said he was depleted. And I understand what it means to be depleted, because you got so much going on in life. You got to be a wife or a husband, a mother or a father, an employee, a daughter, a sister, a auntie. Like, you got all these obligations to folks, and you get depleted when you're constantly pouring out to them. And then when do you get some time for yourself? And her thing was like, well, I've never been. Okay, so you all can go, but this trip was for him. He needed a break. And he needed a break from her. And I think sometimes we think that we're not supposed to get breaks from our spouse, but sometimes our spouse are the very reasons that we're stressed out. And if what difference does it make whether he went 4 hours away on a trip or went across the sea to Africa on a trip? He still needed to get away from work. He needed to get away from family. He needed to get away from his wife. What is wrong with him going to Africa so that he can become one with himself, get his mindset together, get himself together, and regroup? I think it was a wonderful thing that he realized that he needed some time. He needed some time to just be with himself. He needed some time to be somewhere peaceful. He needed a place to go that would give him some calmness and the ability to be able to reflect and get his mind together and his emotions together, and for the wife to think that and make him feel guilty for needing to regroup and get and rejuvenate himself was wrong. And for her to think that he should have took her, no. Some me time is me time. Me time doesn't mean me and you. Me time just means me. We all need me time. And so I personally think there was nothing wrong with him going to Africa by himself. But I want to know what you think. Do you think he was wrong for going to Africa by himself and not taking his wife because she hadn't been and she felt like she should go because she hadn't been? I don't think that was a reason for her to go. Not when one of the breaks he needed was probably from her. So tell me in the comments what you think. I don't think he was wrong. I applaud him for doing some self-care. More men need to do self-care. Women do self-care all the time. Men need to start doing some self-care for themselves, okay? So that's my thoughts. Tell me in the comments what you think. Now, for today's topic on the masterclass, we're going to talk about it takes more than chemistry. And that's in reference to a relationship. And so I want to start out by going back, in some other episodes I've shared my stories with you and things that, created me or turned me into someone that I had to unbecome. But, some good things happened to me in my life. But I want to talk about chemistry because there was one guy back when in my teenage years that I had like this great chemistry with. Like, we really hit it off. We really got along. We had like great conversations. I don't recall us ever really arguing or anything like that. And he was one of those people where I talked about my first love was a benchmarker of what I was looking for in a relationship. He was another benchmarker of what I was looking for in a relationship. Someone who truly took the time out to make me feel lovely and appreciated. Someone who took the time out to listen to me and my needs and my wants and respond to that accordingly. He was someone who had a great sense of humor. He brought out the best in me, and so the relationship was just really good. We got along really well. The chemistry was awesome to the point where we always would break up and find our way back to each other. But the issue, one of the main issues of the relationship was it was long distance. So there was, I met him at a church function and I seen him all the time because we would go to these church functions a couple times a year. And, when we're together and we see each other, it was like dynamic. The chemistry was awesome. But then you go home to your separate places. You try to keep that thing going. But back in the day, we didn't have cell phones like we do now where you could just call. We didn't have FaceTime. We didn't have email. We didn't have all these things that are available to us now to help aid in long distance relationships. I mean, we had you had to get calling cards to make long distance phone calls. And so eventually, you kind of fade away. But as we got a little older, it was at the point where we really wanted to be together. I was going to move away from Minnesota and go to Texas so that I could be with him. We were going to get married. Like, I'm telling you, I thought this was the man of my dreams. The chemistry was so awesome. When we were together, it was just dynamic. And it was one of those things where even when we would go date someone else, we would always come back together. If he was with someone, it was like, I don't care who he's with, you're going to be with me. He's going to always choose me. He chose me and I would choose him. But then it gets to a point where you, as you get older and you mature, that you begin to realize that even though the chemistry between the two of you is awesome, even though the attraction is undeniable, it's going to take more than chemistry to be in a relationship. And there came a point where I had to realize, what do you want? Like, this guy is great, the personality is great, but it's going to take more than just an attraction, that physical attraction and all, and what we think is lust and love together, to build a relationship and build a marriage. And I was at the point where, he was kind of a street guy. Even though he went to church, he was a street guy. And you know us good girls want them bad boys. Whether them bad boys is in church or not, we are attracted to the bad boys. I don't know why we're so attracted to bad boys, but we are. And so I was attracted to me a bad boy. But the reality was, even though I was attracted to the bad boy, I didn't want the bad boy life. I just couldn't deal with someone who wanted to be in the streets, because personally, the way I wanted my man to be at home. Not that you couldn't go out and hang out and have fun, but I didn't want someone who's coming home at 2 o'clock in the morning. I didn't want someone who's hanging out on the street selling dope. I don't want anyone who's I have to be worried about whether or not you're going to get stopped by the police, or whether or not you're going to get shot because you're in all the wrong places at all the wrong time. I didn't want to live that kind of life. And so it was going to take more than just the attraction that we have and the chemistry that we had in order to build a healthy relationship and a marriage. And so I, made the choice to leave. There was times I thought later on that we can do this, but the reality is we could not do this, because we were not on the same page. And so what it's going to require for you, that when you want a healthy relationship and you want a healthy marriage and you want to be able to build something together, the two of you have to be on the same page. Attraction is great. Attraction needs to be there, but you also have to be on the same page. You have to be headed in the same direction. One can't be going this way and the other's going this way, because it's not going to work if you all are not headed in the same direction. So you must have some commonality, and you must be whole. Okay, broken attracts broken, period, point blank. If you're whole, you're not going to put up with the toxicity of someone who's broken. Broken attracts broken, whole attracts whole. I know they say opposite attracts, but opposites attract and then it becomes toxic, and you don't want that. And so you have to be whole, so that the whole you is attracting and desiring the whole of someone else. And then purpose plays a big part in whether or not you should be together and this is going to work. What are you purposed to do? What are they purposed to do? And then what are you purposed to do together? Now, you might not know what you're purposed to do together until after you get married and you get to know each other a little bit better. But what is your purpose? And does that person support and serve your purpose? Because if they don't, it's not going to work. It's going to be issues and problems, because God is telling you to do one thing and they're telling you to do something totally different. And then what are you going to do? Not listen to God, and then that causes a problem in your marriage. Or listen to your husband, and then that's going to cause, or your wife, and that's going to cause you problems with God. So you want to be able to know, what are you purposed to do, and what is your meaning in life, and where are you going, and does that person fit where you're going? A lot of times we're picking people based upon our feelings and not about our future, and that person you're with does not fit your future. Okay, and that's why it's important for you to know your purpose and where you're going and what it is that you're purposed to do, so that when you're picking a partner, you can determine, does that partner fit where I'm going? Because if they're not fitting where you're going, then you might as well just leave it alone. Okay, and then you also have to be willing to die to yourself every day. Give up who you are, give up the selfishness, the self-centeredness, and the pride and the ego in order to make things work. And that's something that a lot of people are not willing to do. And as nice as this person was, as lovely as this person was, he was not willing to do that. He was not giving up the streets. for me. And I'm not mad at him for that. He had to do what he had to do for him, and then I had to do what I had to do for me. But you have to know that when you come together, your togetherness is to serve, is to have a, it has a greater purpose. Okay. And so, but in that greater purpose, you got to remember, what is that greater purpose? Which means that you're going to have to sometimes die to yourself, die to who you are, die to that person that you need to become, die to that person who's a perfectionist, who's a control freak, who's an attention seeker, who is a who's guarded, you know, someone who isolates themselves, someone who's argumentative, because all of these things, these masks that you're wearing, does not help you build the healthy relationship. So when I say you have to die to yourself, you got to die to the selfishness, you got to die to the rage, you got to die to all of these things that doesn't serve where you're going, and it doesn't serve a healthy relationship. Okay, so that's my masterclass. It's gonna take more than just a mutual attraction and chemistry. You're gonna have to start looking further than the physical and that he looks so good and he's so fine. You're gonna have to look beyond that and start looking at where you're going and where God wants you to be, and making sure that person you choose is the right person to help you in serving your purpose. Okay. Now, next week, I am interviewing Dion Banks, who is going to come and talk to us all about investing and building wealth. So I want you to check out this clip. When you were going through this, did your husband know that the business was in trouble and just didn't know how you were taking it or feeling it, or was you didn't tell him anything?
No, he knew that the customers were dwindling down. They would call me from Target, like, what is that stuff you used to carry, or what is that stuff you carry? So he would see my expression and understand that the business revenue was slowing down a lot. He knew that I had the SBA loans. He knew about that, but the credit card part, me charging things to make sure that everything, I was able to order inventory, and that he didn't know all of that.
Now we're going to move on to the question of the viewer question of the day. And I'm going to read this to you because it's a situation that a person had. And what it said is, I'm having a hard time with having to tell a business partner that we started, that they started a business with, that I cannot continue to build with them. Their situation is hindering progress and they're not putting in equal effort. And they were struggling with having the conversation and they didn't know what to do. And so they want to know, how do they handle this? And so first, let me say that if you are building a business with someone, you know, everything may not always be equal. Somebody might end up putting in more money than another, and that might be that one person's 60% owner, another one's 40% owner. You're always not going to put in equal things when it comes to abilities, because your abilities is different. And so a partnership is great when you bring your strengths and they bring their strengths. But there can be a time where you're building something with someone and you're putting in way more work, way more time, way more mental efforts, way more conversations, and making sure things are getting done. And that person is just kind of sitting back and riding your coattails because they know how smart you are. They know where you're going. And they're like, I got to stick around and I got to hold on to this, because if I do, then I can come up on them. And that's really not a partnership when they're sitting back waiting to come up on you. But the thing at this point is that you realize you can't build with them. You realize that this is not going to work. You realize that this is something that you're going to have to do on your own. And now you have to have a conversation. And you're like, how do I do this? I don't want to do this. Well, yes, you do. Yes, you do. And the answer is clear. The answer is clear. If this person is not putting forth the effort, they're not bringing equal to the table, the answer is clear as to what you need to do. Your issue and your struggle is the conflict and having to tell this person and possibly losing the friendship. And that's what really has us tormented a lot of times. It's not the decision that we have to make, because a lot of times the decision is clear. This is not going to work. I'm going to have to move on. But the problem comes into, if there's a close relationship with this person, having to have that conversation, that hard conversation that I'm not going to be able to do this, and then possibly that friend not taking it the right way and then losing that friendship. And the only thing that I can tell you at this point is it has to be done. You're going to have to put on your big girl panties. You put on your big boy panties or underwear. Sorry, big boy underwear. And have the conversation. Because at this point, you can't keep putting your feelings on the back burner for their feelings and what they're doing. Yes, you don't want to lose a friendship, but there's something much greater that you're going to lose if you don't have this conversation. You're going to lose yourself. You're going to lose what you need to build for your family. So at some point, you got to put you and your family first, and God, what God has purposed you to do. If God is having you build this business, okay, as part of your purpose, then that is more important than saving someone else's feelings. You're going to have to be truthful, and you're going to have to be honest, and you're just going to have to tell them and have that conversation. Now, there's a way to approach it, and then you can approach it the right way and being able to explain it, and they can still not take it right. But at that point, you're not responsible for their reaction. You're not responsible for how they feel. You're only responsible for being true to yourself. You're only responsible in being honest with yourself and standing up for yourself and your purpose and your family and what you're supposed to do at this point. Don't put your feelings on the back burner. Have the conversation. It's usually going to be all right. Sometimes we make up things in our head that conversations are going to be harder than they have to be. And then you go have the conversation and you realize, woo, that was easy. So just have the conversation, okay? So my becoming tip of the day is don't take the bait. That is something that I heard a while ago, and it has really stuck with me. And it's something that I want to share with you because it's something that I tell my clients all the time when we're dealing with conflict. So it kind of goes to the question that we had before. When we're dealing with conflict, it becomes so easy to take the bait, which means people are baiting you. They're triggering you to argue. They're triggering you to be upset. They're triggering you to be frustrated. They're triggering you to be distracted and not get done what you need to get done for the day. And we've got to learn in our becoming to be able to recognize the triggers and be able to handle the triggers in the moment and self-regulate so that we don't take the bait and cause us to act in ways that is not the way we want to be and not who we are, because I always say we are not our behaviors. We are not how we act, okay? And so we have to be able to say that's not within my character, because sometimes we act out of character and then we like, why did I do that? You did that because in that moment you were not self-aware, you were triggered, and you took the bait. And we have to start being able to stop, take a deep breath, reflect on what's happening, be aware of our feelings and our emotions, and think about what's happening so that we don't take the bait and find ourselves caught up in arguments and situations that end up distracting our day, ruining our plans, and taking us in somewhere that we never intended to go mentally or emotionally. So the becoming tip is really for you to start becoming a little bit more self-aware of what is happening around you and how you're feeling, so that you can be more aware when someone's trying to bait you into doing something, saying something, or acting in ways that's just what you're trying to get away from and that you don't want to do. Okay? All right. That is our show for today. And as always, where you are is not where you have to be. Your past does not define you. You define you. So heal, transform, and pursue you.